Hey everyone. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the fact that not only has Doug Ford done already some great things as far as giving the people some choice economically and putting the kibosh, putting the brakes on, the carbon tax, this big giant wealth transfer once again from the people that the Trudeau Liberals and the collectivists in Canada have been they've been just salivating and chomping at the bits, hoping that they can steal some more of your productive value, your productive labor, your productive income, and the fruits of your labor. Like I say, though, not only has Doug put the brakes on that and the whole sex ed curriculum so far, and opened up the marijuana legalization in Ontario to the market, to allow some private businesses to actually enter into the equation, right? So once again, allowing some actual genuine competition to flourish. I'm already happy with quite a few things that Doug Ford has done, but this one, just another notch, just another check mark as far as I'm concerned, as far as promoting individual liberty. Doug Ford has actually done another thing that I find to be another positive, very positive thing, and he put the brakes on that, that implementation of socialism. Well, they call it the guaranteed income. That was the whole pretense under the Win Liberals was, we're going to offer a guaranteed income where everybody can just get paid for doing nothing. The government will pay. Well, first of all, where's the government getting this money from? Oh, yeah, the taxpayers. The actual people that have to work productively in the private sector, not public sector, not those people that get their money from the private sector, because all wealth is created and generated through the private sector, the actual labor and intellect that resides within the private sector. It's you, all of you out there who work in the private sector, that create and generate all the wealth and all the productivity and all the economic prosperity in Canada. The public sector, those in government, they are merely those who forcefully redistribute all that productive income and wealth that those in the private sector generates and creates. Headline of the Financial Post: paying able-bodied people not to work isn't an act of compassion, it's an act of surrender. Opinion: getting real people into real jobs is the measure on which the Ford government should be judged. The Ford government's cancellation of Ontario's basic income pilot project has generated considerable media and political attention. Editorial pages and social media have been marked by lamentations about evidence-based policy and accusations about the government's supposed lack of compassion. Lack of compassion? Basic income is forced wealth and income redistribution, not voluntary, because Canadians can, if they want to choose to give other people portions of their income, they're totally entitled to do so. There's nothing to prevent them doing that. No, this is forced. This is forcefully taking from some people and given to others, which is theft, extortion. I've heard people want to use extortion instead of theft. Whatever. Tomato, tomato, potato, potato, but it's still forced. It's still immoral. It's still legitimate and should be rightfully illegal, because it's definitely unjust. You just can't take from people that are productive members in society and just take a portion of it and give to others and think that that's a moral stance, a moral position to take. Not even anything closely resembling that in reality. That's just truth, folks. Just truth. You can try to tell yourself all the bullshit. You can build up all the lies and political rhetoric in your head as you want to try to make theft seem okay, but it's not. Both claims are unjustified. Not only was the pilot itself flawed, the basic idea of generous, unconditional, and universal cash transfers wrongly sees joblessness as merely a material problem. The government is thus correct to scrap the initiative and instead focus on reforming the province's income support system to better enable and support paid work. Once again, I think both positions are terrible, because even if you stick with the current welfare system, it's still, once again, on probably a smaller scale than a UBI would entail, but it's still forced income or wealth redistribution. If you want to help out people, do it voluntarily. That would lead by example, and then you get people to lead. Then you would actually have somewhere you could stand. Then you could preach on the pulpit as someone who's principled. But none of these political hacks or none of these media hacks are doing anything of that, or suggesting that Canadians, hey, what? I thought Canadians were so generous and so loving, so accepting, so forgiving, so whatever, right? Well, if that's the case, let them do it voluntarily. Oh, you're not going to let them? So I guess you don't have as much faith in the people as you pretend. No, what it is you want to force them to do shit that you think is benevolent or that you think is good, because you want to be able to pick who the winners or losers are in society. Or you want to create equality of outcome instead of equality of opportunity, which, think about what equality of outcome is. Huh? You ever seen any competitive venture? Does everybody finish at the finish line at the same time? No. And the only way that could possibly happen is if you slow down the people that are quicker, or slow down the people that are smarter, or you prevent the people that are actually more competent from actually gaining that acknowledgement or reward for doing such. No. Forced wealth and income redistribution is that race to the lowest common denominator where everybody suffers. Not just the people at the top, in the middle, but even the people at the bottom. Because you've destroyed their incentive and their proper psychology and their ambition and their willingness to assume personal responsibility and personal accountability. You destroy what it is that gives them character under a pretense of benevolence. It's worth unpacking both critiques: the government's purported rejection of evidence and lack of compassion to understand their inherent weaknesses, and the case for welfare reform with a pro-work bias. How about just stop central planning and manipulating, dominating, dictating people's lives? How about let people just live freely, but also say to them and let them understand intrinsically and instinctively that yes, you get freedoms, but with those freedoms comes personal responsibility and accountability. But central planning hacks and authoritarians don't want to give you any of those. They want you to be completely reliant on them. Even though a basic income is to replace the existing panoply of income support programs and social benefits, participants in the pilot continue to be eligible for the Ontario drug benefit, geared to income housing, childcare subsidies, and so on. The layering of programming is contrary to most conceptions of a basic income program and would necessarily skew the results. Testing whether recipients like more generous welfare benefits is different than understanding the cost and benefits of shifting to a single unconditional cash transfer. There were also challenges with identifying eligible participants and simulating realistic conditions. Randomized mailouts frequently went to people who were ineligible. A 40-page application form became an obstacle for some prospective participants. And that benefits increased without a corresponding rise in taxes in the affected communities means the experiment failed to reflect the true costs associated with fully implementing a universal BI, estimated at $17 billion by the province. The idea that the rest of the world was waiting with bated breath for the results of this experiment is also rather fanciful. What some people elsewhere were really hoping for was that this experiment would return to a more favorable answer than the other experiments that have been tried most recently in Finland. The fact is that no government that has experimented with BI has decided to pursue it. That too is evidence. Anyways, I'll post a link to this article in the description of this video. It's not a good idea to force productive members of society to pony up or subsidize those who aren't. Like, there are exceptions. There are people that genuinely need your help. But shouldn't that be a minority of the people? Should that number be easily taken care of by the majority of Canadians? When you get to the point where you have such large numbers where you've got to implement a universal basic income, well, that's saying there's something seriously wrong with the culture of the country, with what's going on in that particular society. Whether it's at the local or the provincial or at the federal level, that should be an acknowledgement that something has seriously gone wrong as far as incentives, right? And that's really ultimately what it comes down to, is incentives. You should reward people who are competent, hardworking, willing to be productive members of society, and those that are unwilling to do so, you should never reward them. And for the people that don't fit in either of those camps, that are somewhere in that gray area where they need help temporarily, or they're just falling on hard times, or whatever those those rare exceptions, or those exceptions to the norm, exception to the rule. Yes, that's what friendly society is. That's what churches. That's what charity groups. Think about all the different venues or entities that can help people that are desperate or in need. And if Canadians are truly as compassionate as, the political propagandists try to put forth and espouse, well, they'll be easily taken care of without any central planning, any forced income or wealth redistribution, or any pretense of having to completely destroy proper incentives. when it comes to economics or social policy, for that matter. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.